Good afternoon. I'm Judy Peacock, and this is Carole MacMullan. And we want to take you on a walk through the woods with us this afternoon to see wildflowers, to see the wildflowers that will be coming up right now. Is that right, Carole?
Yeah, I wish I was out there right now. It's such a beautiful day.
I know it.
But it's the next best thing because we've got some beautiful flowers to show you.
I'm Judy Peacock. I'm a member of the North Fulton Master Gardeners, and I grew up in Norcross, which was a little bitty town when I was growing up, and I played in the woods and started to learn about wildflowers there. I love gardening, and I really enjoyed the wildflowers. I now live in LJ. I used to live in Atlanta for 45 years, and now I live in LJ on 8 acres and trying to re-wildflower my property because it was a farmland, I'm sure, at one time. And so there aren't that many on my property now, but I hope to have more.
Well, we're kind of a blend of the North and the South because I grew up in the North. And Judy, I have to thank her because she is the one that took me on this wildflower walk a few years ago, and that just piqued my interest in wildflowers. And that's why I'm here today with Judy. And I've been a master gardener for 7 years. And before that, I was in Pennsylvania teaching biology for 35 years. And then I moved down to Georgia. And since that time, that's been about 14 years since I've been here in Georgia. I've been playing in the dirt, though. My mother kicked me out of the house at a young age and said, "Don't you come back in until the dinner bell rings." And so I've spent a lot of time out there studying plants and animals on my own in the vacant lot. It was down the street. And when I got here, of course, I enjoyed being down here because I can garden more days out of the year, probably almost 360 out of 365. I volunteer and with my extra time at Assistance League of Atlanta. And because I was a biology teacher for so many years, I know how important scholarships are to helping students continue their education and finding their dream and pursuing their talents. So I am the chairman of 2 scholarship groups. So Judy and I are going to now take you to the scene. Oh, wait.
Yes, but Carole's going to give you all of the rules first. Remember, she's the teacher.
Right. I'm a master of rules. So here are the rules, and they are promoted by the Georgia Botanical Society. So these are the ones that I want you to adhere to. Number 1, we don't want to collect any plants because people want to continue walking on these trails and seeing the same beauty you have seen. So if you appreciate this beauty, please keep it for others. Do not take.
Right. And at the end of our presentation, we will have some possibilities where you can actually buy these plants. So you don't have to steal them from the national parks and the state parks.
And plus, guess what? It's illegal. Okay, you don't want to pick the flowers either. You don't want to dig them up. So don't bring your trowels, don't bring your shovels, and don't bring your scissors. Do not cut any wildflowers. I know how tempting it might be, but they are the reproductive portion of the plant. And that's how the seeds are generated. And that's how life starts. And for the plants, they start with the seeds. So please do not pick the flowers. Also, you stay on the trail. One of the places that we're going to take you to has boardwalks, and they have done that to keep you on the trail. And also it's very moist there. And so please do not leave the trail. Do not create any new trails because you want to avoid a switchback or to take pictures. And then, of course, pretty logically, you don't want to trample on the vegetation. And I would highly suggest that you do not bring your dogs because it's sometimes hard to keep them from doing that. And then you want to remember the moment, like we remembered the moment. We got all these pictures because we enjoyed the moment and we wanted to remember it. So take pictures and enjoy your outdoor experience.
Almost all of these pictures are our pictures, aren't they?
Yes. Judy came with a treasure trove of pictures, and then I had some to add to it. So here we go. I know you want to see them.
Okay, this afternoon, mostly we're going to be concentrating on one particular area where we go and view wildflowers, and that's the pocket at Pigeon Mountain. And as you can see, there's a boardwalk here, and then all of these wildflowers are growing in this area, and it's a really lovely place to go. It's actually has the largest concentration of wildflowers in the state of Georgia.
And I think it outdoes anything I've ever seen Pennsylvania too. I have been a hiker for many, many years, and I have never seen so many wildflowers. I'm just blown away by this. And I want you to take into account, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so that's why we're here, to educate you so that you really understand the beauty of this place and you appreciate it more. I mean, I've seen people go through here for 15 minutes. I've seen people, I've spent maybe a couple hours there, and there are people that are still there after a couple hours. And so, it's, so you get out of it what you put into it. And we wanted to give you all the knowledge that you could possibly garner from this little hour presentation so that you can appreciate the beauty of the world and Georgia.
This is the actually the trailhead of the pocket. It's near Lafayette, Georgia, or Lafayette, Georgia. Actually, they say Lafayette. And these are the directions, but there is a website that you can go to. And when you do go to the pocket, an outdoor Georgia license, go outdoors, I think license is, if you're of a certain age, as I am, you don't have to pay for that license, but you're supposed to have it. So, and it's a very easy out and back. It's less than a mile out and back. We do recommend, though, if you're going all the way up to the waterfall, and there is a waterfall at the end of the trail, that you might want to take hiking sticks.
Yes, I'm glad Judy reminded me of that.
Yes, and you would want to wear some sort of shoes that would be appropriate for hiking. As you can see.
What a magical place. Oh my gosh, I wish I was there right now.
We're going soon, though.
Yes, we are.
Right.
And look at that double waterfall coming off of there. We've had so much rain, so it must be exquisite right now. And look at those rocks. Now we're going to talk about the importance. That's why this is such a unique place. It's got the moisture, it's got the water, it's got the right rocks, it's got the right soil. Everything just is absolutely like the magic is happens there because of this. So Judy's going to tell you.
Yeah, these are limestone and sandstones, and you can actually see the stratification there on the, I mean, it's, for geologists, I would think it would be very interesting because you can really tell how the different layers are put on. And the fact that it is limestone helps for a lot of the wildflowers, doesn't it, Carole?
Yes.
Carole's
soil biology, soil chemistry is really, really important. They actually have majors now in soil chemistry, soil biology.
Yes, but because of the limestone, there's lots of calcium in the soil.
And you're going to see that word crop up a couple times.
Right.
Well, here we go. Characteristics of spring wildflowers. These flowers, as soon as it starts to get warm, the air temperature is warm, the soil temperature is warm, they're opportunists. They want to maximize their opportunity to get light because the trees that surround them are leafless right now. And soon they're going to have leaves. And guess what? That means they're not going to get that sun that's down there, and on the screen, that little happy sun. They're looking for that sun. And so they just pop out as soon as it gets warm. And they said, we're going to take advantage of this. They're the opportunists. And there they go. They start to, their roots get excited, and then that gives them enough energy to pop up their flowers and start to reproduce.
And I think that almost all of the flowers that we're going to talk about today are perennials, but some of them, most of them, the early spring wildflowers are ephemerals, which means that
Judy's going to tell you more.
They come up because they have all of the spring sun and no leaves on the trees, and then they die back. They live for a couple of weeks, and then they die back to come back next year.
So they get the first opportunity for the nutrients,
right,
and the sun. And so here's some of them.
Right. These are some of the ones we'll see today, and like this one's a ruin anemone, and it will die back. It will be there several weeks. So if you decide to go, you want to go visit the pocket. I've been different times of the year, and there are wildflowers there all during the year. But the big burst of color and flowers is in the spring. So you'd really want to go probably March, and then the probably latest into April.
Okay, it's just like a magic act. They just pop out, do their thing, and then all of a sudden, what happened to them? They disappeared. No, next year they'll be back. So in order to understand the differences between some of these wildflowers, we are going to give you a little biology lesson. So I get to do some little bit of biology here with Judy, and we have flowers, and flowers have male parts and female parts. We're going to talk about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees, but they all have reproduction going on. So we're going to talk about that. So Judy's going to remove the outer portion here.
Okay.
So we can get into the portion that is.
I'm moving a
stamen
too.
We'll talk about that. So off went the
petals.
Petals. Okay, now Judy is going to take on the role of the male. And she's going to talk about the male parts.
Okay. This is the stamen. And of course you can see on the, maybe you can't see, but it has the pollen, and the pollen usually is picked up by a bee or some other insect, and then it is deposited on the
female part.
Right.
That's what I'm going to come in and talk about.
This pollen's not doing very well.
Well, that's good, because this produces so much pollen that it can really make a mess. So we're lucky that it's not making a mess. So anyway, we have notice the word stamen on the picture here. Okay, the men, M-E-N, so that is the male part. Now, what we have left, we don't have much of the flower left anymore, do we? Well, this is the female part, and up here at the top is the stigma, and then this is the style, and then at the bottom is the ovary. Now I have a flower that has come and gone, and here is the swollen ovary on that. Oops.
There.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Judy.
I need off the camera.
I need a partner here. Okay. So anyway, this is the swollen portion of the flower here, where you can see the word ovary. So I've got the ovary here. And if we open up the ovary, you can see here, Judy's helping me out. Thank you, Judy. You can see those are the ovules, which are going to turn into seeds.
Right.
So that particular one has going to have 8 seeds in it. And when they drop down, of course, they'll germinate, and that'll produce another plant. Now we have to talk about one other thing, and that's called the sepal. All right. Now here's a rose.
Right here.
Oh, Judy.
This is the camera.
Thank you, Judy. All right. Can you see these little green things that are hanging out here? Those are called sepals. So they're important for some of these wildflowers because they really don't have petals. They just have these little sepals. So that is our little biology lesson for today.
Okay, thank you, Carole.
Now, moving on. Oh, maybe can I do this one too?
Yes, I want you to do this one.
Okay, well, you see the dark green? That is my home base. If you go back up to Pennsylvania, Judy maybe can help me out. See that one little finger-like projection right there? That's where I grew up.
But that's Pennsylvania.
Yeah, see that one little thing that looks like a little finger sticking up?
Mm-hmm. Right there.
Up there.
Up here.
Here.
Oh, okay.
No, down here.
Down here.
Down here. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Near West Virginia. Okay. Right down there, right in the border right there. That is the mountainous portion of West Pennsylvania, excuse me, where I grew up. And notice all the green. And that green is the Appalachian Mountains. And those are where a lot of these wildflowers that we're going to talk about live. So not only are they in Georgia, you're going to probably find them throughout these Appalachian Mountains, but at different times of the year, obviously, they're going to be blooming maybe a month or 2 months later. And you've heard of the Appalachian Trail,
right?
Which, Judy, you can maybe go way up to the tippy top.
All the way to Maine.
And then comes down to Georgia, but you can see the Appalachian Mountains actually continue into Alabama and even down into Arkansas. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. We want to give you the area that we're going to focus on today.
So if you walk the Appalachian Trail, you probably see most of these flowers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Start in Georgia and go north would probably be your best thing. Start in spring in Georgia and work your way up to Maine.
Okay, so if you went on this walk with us, probably, and we were early spring, this is going to be the first wildflower you will see. And the name of it is the harbinger of spring. And harbinger is not a word that's used very often now, but that means it's actually the big newsletter It's shouting out.
Oh, okay.
Harbinger.
It's springtime.
Yes,
All right.
right. And it's a member of the carrot family. And it's also called salt and pepper sometimes because it has white leaves, white petals. And then the anthers are dark, sort of a dark.
These little guys,
things.
remember from our dissection?
This is the camera. The camera is the little dot.
Oh, we lost it.
Yes. They're dark, and also the stems are dark too, sort of a dark purple. And this is a very, very tiny flower, so it's very difficult to see, but it's very sweet when you do see it. It too is an ephemeral, so it will die back after it blooms.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I go backwards.
Oh, guess what, Judy? You know what's my favorite color?
Blue.
Blue. So Judy's going to let me do this
Yes.
with. These are called Virginia Bluebells, and if you go to the Shirley Miller Wildflower Walk, you will see not hundreds of these, but I guarantee you'll probably see thousands of them. They just cover the earth, particularly when you first walk in. You're just blown away by this sea of blue flowers. Now, if you get there really early, like right now, they may not be completely out, and Judy can probably show you the little bit of pink. You might actually see these.
There's a bud there.
They're in the bud stage. They haven't opened up, but once they open up, there's just this beautiful color of blue in it. And they're one of the taller of the, most of these spring wildflowers aren't real tall. It's one of the flowers.
A lot of the people the nurseries that sell wildflowers, that grow wildflowers and sell them to the public, this will be one that they will do because you can get it to grow in your garden. I've had it before. I've bought it before.
Well, will you go down to the last part of our slide there? And it's what kind of soil, Judy, do we need?
Well, this one does need calcium.
Okay, so make sure you've got enough calcium in your soil, or they may not bloom for you, or they may just belly up and die on you. This is a close-up of look at how many of them are just in this one little location.
This is at the pocket. And I was told too that this area floods a lot of times because of the creek coming through, and so they will take very damp soil.
Oh, okay. So, well, we certainly have that right now, don't we?
Right.
But soon we will be in the drought, but they are, ephemerals. So they don't care if the drought comes in the summer, as long as they get plenty of water in the spring. They're opportunists, as I said.
This one is the bloodroot, and this is the wildflower that I had on my property in Sandy Springs when I lived there right out of college, that I first noticed and really made me become interested in wildflowers. And it's called bloodroot because the sap, if you broke the stem or if you cut into this has a rhizome, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think it has. Yeah, it's an underground rhizome.
Right. Yeah. It would look bright red like blood. And that's how it gets its name. But if you'll notice, it's just this one single flower with white petals and yellow stamens. It's really beautiful, but it's tiny, and the leaf is multi-lobed. And sometimes at night, because these are some of the first flowers that come up, and it'll be cold at night. And so the petals will close up around all of the stamens, and the leaf will go around it as well to protect it. Protect it so the seeds will make.
Okay, I've never seen them at night.
Right.
Judy has seen them day and night close up. So and then how did the Indians? Well, the Indians took advantage of this because we like color, don't we? Right. Human beings like color, and they said, wow, this thing is releasing this red. Let's make some baskets that are red and make clothing and face paint.
It's also, the sap also is an antiseptic, and I read also that has been used in toothpaste. So I don't know.
Okay, well, there's all kinds of good things that you can learn about wildflowers. Continuing. Oh, Judy, thank you for letting me do this one. I love this one. And it's called a trout lily, and there has to be a reason why it's called a trout lily. And look at the arrow. that leaf, doesn't it look like a
Mhm.
rainbow trout? Well, maybe if you're a fisherman, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not a fisherman, that's what a rainbow trout evidently looks like. They've got those little blotches on them. And look at that flower. I mean, there aren't a lot of yellow wildflowers, but this one is just exquisite. It is a type of lily. It's yellow. And then if you're looking down on it, you will see that it's got some brown on the petals, on the underside of the petals. Just a lovely plant. And it's very early. If you go to the pockets in April, beginning of April, you may miss them.
Right. They will have already bloomed. In fact,
Mhm.
last weekend, my daughter and her family and my husband and I did the Bear Creek Trail, which leads to the second largest tree in Georgia, which is a big, huge tulip poplar. And all along the trail, there were just thousands of
Ooh.
trout lilies. They had not bloomed, but the leaves had all come out.
Oh, I'll have
So,
to find out more
yes.
about that when we're finished.
Yes.
I'm going to do that trail.
Yes, it was lots of fun.
All right.
That's in LJ if anyone wants
Ooh.
to go.
Okay.
Okay, and this next one is the cutleaf toothwort. And you can see why it's called cutleaf. You can see the leaves. And these look like little teeth coming out of the sides of the leaves. It has very distinctive leaf and white flowers. And because there are so many little white flowers, it's not a huge plant. You will have to identify it by its leaves, probably.
Yeah, notice how distinctive those leaves are. Look
Right.
at the scientific name. If you go to the dentist, they're
Right.
dentaria, so they stole that name from the tooth,
Right.
the tooth look.
And here's a picture of the flowers actually in bloom. It has 4 petals. The flowers have four petals. So
Cute little flower.
it is.
And look at, they were kind of like in a cluster. They kind of
come off the top.
branch out.
Right. It's very small.
Okay, well, here's another white one. And this is kind of interesting because yesterday, one of the master gardeners emailed me a picture.
Oh,
and
really?
she said, what is this white wildflower? There's so many white wildflowers.
Right.
Well, notice the leaf is not a cut, it's not cut.
No, it's
not
lobed.
Yeah, it's not cut into little pieces like the previous one. It doesn't look like
Right.
little teeth. This one has 3 little lobes to it. And then you can count the number of petals on this one. It has 5 petals, and there's some with 10. I've never seen one with 10, but this one has 5 to 10 petals in it. And so I emailed her back and said, this is a rue anemone. They bloom early, but they last quite a long time. So I'm glad she has some of those in her yard because
they're actually in her yard.
Yeah, she was right by a fence, so I assumed it was
How
near
lucky.
in her yard. So she'll have the benefit of seeing them for several weeks because they last quite a while,
And
evidently.
They're also called windflowers because they're so delicate that just the slightest breeze makes them move. They have movement. They're really lovely. And I read this morning, I was reading about them, and they were saying what the book I was reading was saying that the ants distribute the seeds.
Makes sense because they're so close to the ground. Many of these spring wildflowers don't expend a lot of their energy in making tall stems. They make short little stems, or maybe they don't even have a stem to them at all. Which brings us to this.
Right, Trillium. Some of our favorites. And my Trilliums, like these are either Sweet Betsy's or Wake Robin. These are blooming right now, the ones that I have. And actually,
already?
Yes, and actually the ones that I have, I bought from our garden fair last year. Was it last year? Yes, it was last year. I bought them from my garden fair, and they've already come up in my area that I have wildflowers.
Well, I'm jealous. I want to get out there and walk and see them.
There are about 49 species of Trillium in the world and 39 in the United States.
And how many in Georgia, though?
In Georgia has the largest concentration. There are 20 species in Georgia, which is amazing. And many of them you will see at the pocket when you go there.
And Judy told me the significance of the word trillium that I didn't know. So maybe, Judy, you can tell us what.
Well, it has let me go back to this picture. I think you can see it has 3 leaves. These aren't actually leaves, I was told. They are bracts, but
We'll call them leaves.
right. And they perform
Simplicity.
they perform photosynthesis. So, and then the flower has 3 sepals and 3 petals. And then once you get to the stamens, there's 6 stamens.
So they like 3 and multiples
Right.
there of 3.
Right. And see, this is a different variety here, but you can see the 3.
Look at those leaves, Judy. Are the leaves on this one like that one?
No, these are clear.
Why do we get mixed up? Why are they? Yeah, they still have something in common, right?
Right.
Okay.
There are
right.
many different kinds.
If you go out with your children, you might want to just have a challenge walk and say, how many trillium can you find on the walk? Well, we're going to give you a couple guidelines. One way to distinguish between them is the flower color.
Right.
And Judy, what colors do they come in?
They come in white, in pink, in burgundy. There's a yellow one. And I'm trying to think, are there other colors?
I think that's it. And then the leaf color you saw in the previous one, those leaves are different.
Right. They can be molten or they can be a solid color. And the stem, which is actually a scape, not a stem.
Okay. We're trying to be simplistic, but yes.
Sometimes they're tall and sometimes they're short, so that they're recumbent on the ground.
And look at those flowers. Some of them are bashful. They're like underneath the leaf and they just don't really want to show their face. And other ones are just out there.
Right.
Like the one we saw. Maybe we could go back a couple slides. And
also you put this in too, that it takes 7 years for a seedling to mature and to produce flowers. So that's another reason not to pick flowers.
Exactly.
Okay. This is one of the bent trillium. And then this is a trillium that probably most of you have seen, because this is pretty common. The Catesby trillium, or the one that is not also called nodding sometimes.
Yeah, it's one of those bashful ones that's underneath the leaf. And look at that one, that's right out there. And look at the 3 petals, and then in the interior you see those little yellow things.
3 is a magic number.
Yep. 333. All right. Look at this guy.
Right. He's the decumbent. He doesn't have very much of a stem. And you'll see these at the pocket too. Maybe you'll see a cascade of these.
All right.
And they have molten leaves.
Guess what? I get to do this with Judy, don't I? Because I took this picture. Look at that. It's just a whole hillside. That area of this path near Pittsburgh is just loaded with white trillium. And I'm a biker, and I enjoyed going there in May. You have to wait till May because, of course, it's only like 40 some degrees there, and it's 60 some degrees here in Georgia. So if any of you are listening in from out of Georgia, and you live in Pennsylvania, if you go on the Spike Trail, which is near Boston, Pennsylvania, in May, you may just see those. And of course, there's so many of them, I think, because the deer, it's so steep where these are, that the deer can't trample on them. Yeah,
because deer will eat trillium. They can decimate.
Oh, they can? Well, I don't think they're going to go up that really steep slope, nor is a human going to go up there either. And then see the rock. So I guess that creates the soil. We're talking about soil and how important different types of soil are. So the soil is just perfect there, and the moisture, the water's coming down the hillside. So, it just creates a perfect environment. And look at the flower. It's beautiful. It's big. And that's why it's called the Great White Trillium, because it's the largest of the trillium. And it's got those big white flowers. And notice again, the leaves, these leaves don't have all that modulated effect that the bicumbent has.
Trilliums too, their seeds are distributed by ants as well. When the seed is made, there's a section of the seed, and I'm not sure what it's called, but it's high. There's a little fuzzy area at the end of the seed that the ants will take back to their nest, and they'll feed it to their larvae. And then once they've eaten off the seed, the ant takes it and puts it in his trash pile, or maybe it's like his compost pile, and the seed germinates.
Oh, wow.
So that's
it takes a whole village to make this all happen. Okay.
Okay. And this is the celandine poppy or woods poppy.
Yeah, we're back to yellow again. We don't get much yellow, but here we go.
And it has a lovely cut leaf here that you see, has 4 flower petals, and it gets pretty tall. So it, and this was also taken at the pop, and you can see there's a bluebell down there. That looks like a Dutchman's breeches.
Yeah.
All right, and here it is. Maybe you want to talk about this because you like this.
Okay, well, I like this picture, and I insisted we have this picture because remember we were talking about no, we'll have this correct now, the sepals. So these are hairy little sepals, and they're protecting the flower bud. And when that opens up, they're going to, they're going to be down at the bottom of the flower, or they maybe just fall into the ground. I think they must actually fall to the ground. And there's a blooming one, and then it looks like there's 2 to 3 of them that are going to bloom, though. It looks like maybe that one is opening up, or something has chewed that one.
Maybe
hard to tell.
Chewed it, yeah.
Well, there's all.
Oh, and this is your favorite. And Carole should talk about this. This is the pink lady slipper.
What an experience I had last year. A friend of mine was walking in the woods behind my house alone, not with me. And he came back and he's told me, he said, "You have got to go on this walk with me." He says, "I have a surprise for you." And we walked back and we got to see a flower that very few people have ever seen, but they've heard of. It's called a pink lady slipper. And it is actually an orchid. And it grows in Georgia, but it is not considered endangered, but it is considered rare. And because it is rare, it is protected. We do have a law to protect them, and it's called the Georgia Preservation Act of 1973. And so when they find these and they're building a road like they are building now, a new ramp on 400, they found quite a few of them at McGinnis Ferry Road where they're putting in this ramp. And they actually sent in the Georgia Botanical Garden people to go in there to transplant them, because they could not build. They stopped the building until they got them and transplanted them. Now, I'm telling you, do not try to do this on your own. Please leave them in place. They are super finicky. They have a symbiotic relationship with a fungus. And if they don't have that fungus, they're just going to belly up and die. And all of your hard effort of removing them is going to go for naught. So what they did, they removed as much soil as they could, and then they took it to an area that they thought duplicated the area in which they took them from. And when I first went back there early in the spring, back in the beginning of April, there were only there were maybe 10 at most. And then we kept going back. And as the earth got warmer and warmer, we saw more and more of them, until one day we decided to count them. And we counted 150 or more of them.
And you're going to let me come this year to see them.
Yes. Right. So it's a little secret place because we don't want people back there picking them or removing them. But if you do want to see them, I would suggest that you go to Johns Creek. There's a place called Autry Mill.
Right. And the North Fulton Master Gardeners maintain a garden there, a demonstration garden there. But on the trail, on the trail walk, there's also a huge collection of lady slippers. And it's really funny because they're underneath little tiny pine trees. I think this was an area that had been a farm at one time. And so they're little new growth pines, and that's where they are.
So the soil again is so important. They must have the right combination of soil. And another reason you don't want to disturb them, it takes 7 years from the time the seed goes in the ground, germinates, until they are able to produce a flower. So that's another thing that creates a very rare plant. Right.
But they are beautiful.
So,
okay. And the next one we have is Phacelia. And I was never familiar. The first time I ever saw this was at the Pocket. And it's related to borage, if you know what that is. Have you ever seen borage growing? No, well, it has a blue flower too. But it's just beautiful, and there's lots of it there. Also, I confused it with native geraniums at first
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're the same
Mhm.
color and the
It has the same sort of flower.
right?
Mhm.
But this is Phacelia, and it has this lavender blue flowers with 5 petals that are in clusters, and it will grow in likes granite outcroppings. So
Yep,
it's
and
lovely.
here is the sepal that's covering the bud before it
Right,
opens up.
and it has sort of a
Oh, yeah, there's the
little
leaf.
leaf that's can't see it real well, but
But the flower is so distinctive, you know,
yes,
this
yeah,
one,
and they're
sometimes you
pretty
want to
tall.
look at the
Yeah,
leaf.
and they're about 14 or 15 inches tall, so they can be pretty tall.
All right. So now we're to violets, and violets have a special place in my heart because my best friend's mother was a Girl Scout leader, and I guess she was a Brownie Scout leader, excuse me, and she took us on a hike, and that was the first wildflower I ever saw, and she told me about these blue violets. And
They're
I
all over
don't
my yard.
Yes, and then I noticed that they were everywhere. Once she pointed them out to me, I found out that they grow everywhere. But you might, if again, you might have a little contest to see if the other people with you, particularly if they're children, if they can find them in other colors, because most people think of violets, they think of blue, but they also come in yellow. And I guess there's quite a few of them in Pennsylvania, because look at that. The genus name is Viola, and then Pennsylvania Ica, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania.
And there were lots of yellow violets on the Bear Creek Trail last weekend, and they were already blooming. They were lovely. And then there's the
and Judy can talk about the white ones.
White violet, yes, and it's called the Canada violet. You will see all 3 of these at the Pocket. So the leaves are sort of heart shaped, and you can eat violets too, you know. So if you want to put those on as a decoration on a cake or something, you know, if the purple violets that grow in your yard, you could certainly use them.
And they're related to the violas that those little pansy-like things that are called violas.
Whoops. Yes, and I have.
Oh, there we go. All righty. So I just plucked them off of one of my containers. All right. Is it my turn or your turn?
I think it's my turn.
This
I'm
is sorry.
That's okay. You don't really have turns. This is the Spring Beauty, and it's pretty small, and it is a small pink flower, and you can see the leaves are oval shape, and the petals are pretty distinctive. They have sort of blue purplish lines in the petals. Sometimes I get this confused with hepatica, but this is Spring Beauty.
Yep. So we talked about so many white ones, but this one, the flower is very distinctive. It's white, but it's got that little bit of purple in it. Little lines of purple.
Yeah. There's another picture.
Another one.
You can see all of these flowers. It's so interesting because the leaves are so thick, because at the Pocket there are many, many trees. So you can imagine the leaf litter on the ground, and think about these little things come up all through those leaves.
Yeah.
No.
Survival. Okay, so now we have the star chickweed. And the star chickweed, again, we're back to white flowers again.
Right.
Now, it says it has 5 petals, but you're probably saying, I'm counting 10. Well, it's actually, they're like Siamese twins. There's, the 2 of them they're bonded at the very, very end.
They're like
Judy, can you
legs.
kind of show with the arrow how they're kind of bonded together at the very end?
Like
that's
little
like
legs.
a double. Right. Yes, there's little Siamese twins there, and they like to be up on the slopes where they're not trampled. And they smart.
And this is it's called star chickweed, and sometimes I think it's called giant chickweed. I know all of you probably who have gardens have been in early spring. You've been overrun with regular chickweed, which also is edible. Did you know that?
No. Okay. Well, if Judy has to survive in the wild, she's going to survive longer than me because she knows more than I do.
But this is much larger and more attractive.
And don't pick. Don't pick, don't pull. All right.
This is wild blue phlox. And some of you probably have regular flock or hybridized phlox in your gardens, but this one is naturally occurring. And now this is not the leaf. The leaf is this little oval here, if you can see amongst the rocks. But it's very, very sweet. Mine is coming, I have some in my wildflower garden, and it's coming up now. Not the flowers, but the leaves. Has 5 petals and these little blue flower clusters. It's very beautiful.
Yep, and it's blue, my
Blue,
favorite
right.
color. So maybe there's another blue to come. Oh, but I get to do this one. It's white, but I love this one. This is called Dutchman's Breeches. And it looks like breeches, doesn't look like
Right,
any
it looks
pants.
like
Yeah.
the Dutchman's pants, those white pants, upside down pants.
Yep. And there you go. It's so distinctive. I mean, when you see this flower, you're going to know exactly which one you've got here. Of all the white wildflowers, this one is definitely recognizable. You're not going to make a mistake on this one. And look at the leaves. Look how they are, you know, they're really dissected and deeply dissected. And how do the bees get in there to pollinate? Well, the bumblebees, they're the ones that can reach
It's actually the
interior.
female bumblebee.
Oh, it's sexist, huh? Only the female can get in there, and she gets a double whammy because she gets the nectar and she leaves with some pollen on her. But the poor honeybees, what about honeybees?
What about them?
Well, guess what?
What?
They go in there and they get pollen, but they don't get any nectar. All that work for nothing. But they do, that helps them pollinate. So there you go. Aren't they beautiful? So if you see them, just, put a double star next to those.
Right. They're very special.
All right.
Okay. And this one is foamflower. Now, foamflower is not an ephemeral, it's a perennial. And you may notice this leaf that it looks very familiar to some of our garden plants because foamflower is related to coral bells and to heucheras. They're all in the same family, but it has clusters of little flowers that go up the stem and open. And it's very foamy looking. And a lot of times you'll see this alongside creeks and, around the creek bed.
And you know what it looks like to me?
What?
Cotton candy.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Yes, it looks like cotton candy to me.
Right, on stems, right. And it's spread by the underground stems. So you'll see lots of when we leave our home to go to Atlanta, which we do quite often, we drive down this road that's very mountainous and curvy and has a stream alongside it. And there's one patch of foamflower growing all alongside that will bloom. I'll see blooming. It's lovely to see.
All right, Judy, I've got to come up to LJ and have a wildflower walk with Judy. All right, well, this little guy, I was just so intrigued by this because I took the picture that's over here on the left. And they were called, I went to this place in Decatur, this wildflower garden in Decatur, and they had a little label and they called it Little Brown Jug. And I said, I've never seen a little brown jug. And now Judy tells me that I have seen little brown jugs, but I just didn't look. So Judy, tell me about the picture on
Well, these are the leaves, and they have these heart-shaped leaves. And if you move the leaves to the side, then these are down underneath.
Yes, and I never noticed them because what are those called? What's another name?
Wild ginger.
And I've heard of wild ginger. I have wild ginger in my yard, and I've never really see the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And that beholder didn't know to look deep down in there, did I?
And it's called wild ginger because it has not a smell, but if you break the root, I believe it is, it sort of smells a little like ginger, and that's the reason it was given the name. My mother, when I was a little girl, would call these little jugs, or sometimes she'd say little pigs because they're sort of pink looking, and she would show them to me. And they're pollinated by ground beetles and ants, I think.
They're so close to the ground. Yeah.
Right.
And actually, going back to our flower anatomy, they don't really have petals. Those are sepals that are all joined together to form the little brown jugs.
Jugs.
Okay.
But they're fun, and children love to see those. And I have these
Mhm.
now. I do have these all over my property. And in fact, I think this picture is from my property along our trail that we've created because they grow there.
So the next time you see that, look.
Yes.
Oh, this one's a pretty one.
And this is one of the, anyone who sees this has to be amazed. This is the Jack in the pulpit. And when you see it, it comes up and it has this leaf that it's actually 3 leaves. It has a stem that comes up and there are 3 leaves. And then the Jack comes up and it sort of looks like a pulpit. And inside, I think these are actually this is the sepal, I believe, isn't it? Or it's called something different. It's called the brat.
So then the Jack
is inside
yeah.
here. Is the flower has
the spadix, okay, and that's where the little flowers are. And
Right.
so what did we tell you about flowers? Flowers make seeds.
And
So
these-
look over here at that beautiful seed pod. I've seen those seed pods before, and for some reason, I never connected it to Jack in the pulpit. So it has a beautiful flower, I guess you would call that the Jack in the pulpit flower. And then when it matures into the seed pod's pretty too.
Right.
So I hope you get to see them because they are so unique.
And
There's not a flower that I know that has a flower like this.
These are really long lived too. 25 years they can live.
Oh, yeah. So
Can
if
you
you have
imagine?
them, baby them because they're going to live for 25 years.
This next one, this is a picture we took at the pocket. And I was not sure what it was, but I sent the picture to a gentleman who has written a book about the pocket, Jay Clark. And he is the person who, the first time we took a field trip to the pocket, he was our field guide.
Oh,
he came
with us?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
what
he
a
took us.
trip that was.
So I said, Jay, what is this? I don't remember seeing this before. And he said, it's wild hyacinth. And if you look at it, it looks like, our cultivated hyacinths. You can see it has these little thin leaves and it smells very sweetly.
Oh, it has a nice smell. Plus it's blue.
Well, sort of bluish white.
Oh, speaking of blue, I get to talk about a blue flower. This is sort of a purpley color though. This is called the crested iris, and it is a member of the iris family. If you notice the leaves, Judy can point out the leaves, how
Yes.
they're long and pointy, just like a regular iris, but they're little minis. They're like a little mini version of an iris, and they do grow naturally in Georgia.
I have some in my wildflower garden.
Yep, and so
they're just beginning to creep up. They have little points coming out of the ground now.
and it belongs to the iris family. You can see the genus name up there, the scientific name. Okay.
And it's called crested because this picture doesn't show it, but right here, normally that's very yellow and it looks like a little crest on the top.
Yeah. Okay, just like a regular iris. So you won't have any trouble identifying this.
No.
Most people know an iris.
Oh, and this is one of my favorite flowers. This is Solomon seal. And it's called Solomon seal because the rhizome that it grows from underground, where the stem comes up, looks like a type of seal. And that's the reason they named it Solomon seal. But each rhizome will have a long stem coming up with alternate leaves, and then these little white flowers come underneath and it sort of arches over. It's very architectural and it's used a lot in shade gardens. I mean, it's cultivated for the trade now. Especially the variegated one. You'll find the variegated one in almost any nursery you go to and you're looking for shade gardens, but it does occur naturally. And I have some green ones in fact, I made my wildflower garden where I found Solomon seal coming up naturally.
Oh, okay. And I have a niece who bought some Solomon seal at the garden fair, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And she put it in the sun. She did not consult with me, and she put it in the sun. And believe it or not, it actually grew in the sun. I mean, it probably wasn't, bloody hot sun that we get it, but it's probably partial sun. And it was very successful in growing there. So, try it out. See if you can.
Well, there used to be,
if you don't have shade, you can still grow it.
A garden around a parking garage at Macy's at Perimeter Mall that was a shade. It was supposed to be a shade garden. It had ferns and tons of Solomon seal. I mean, it had so much I wanted to take some because it was overgrown. I didn't, but I certainly wanted it.
Judy follows the rules. All right, so now we've got a bellwort. Now the bellwort, doesn't it look like, it needs some water? It looks sort of like it's drooping. Okay, it has these droopy yellow flowers, again, beautiful flowers. And it looks like the flowers are just coming like straight out of the leaf. And
it hangs down.
Yep, and it hangs down. And of course, it's very particular about the kind of soil that it has. If it doesn't have the right soil, it's just not going to grow. It likes calcium carbonate, which it gets from limestone. And guess what? Didn't we tell you that there was these limestone rocks all over the place at the pockets? Guess what? It said, here's a perfect spot for me to grow because it's got the right soil. Now, this evidently grows better in the north. This is about the North Georgia area is about the end of its range. It's north, and then and so you're not going to find it in lower areas in southern
South
Georgia.
Right?
South Georgia.
Right. It's also a common name. It has Marybells is also a common name for it.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
But it gets
Judy
pretty
knows
tall.
more about this than I do. She's the one that introduced me to it. Now you're probably saying, you know what? These ladies are supposed to be talking about wildflowers. This is not a wildflower. If you're saying that, you're absolutely right. But guess what, Judy? Why do we include this?
Because wherever, if you've noticed any of these pictures, you'll always see ferns because the ferns grow where the wildflowers grow normally.
And so you're going to see lots of ferns, and I just absolutely adore ferns in the spring because they have, what are those things called, Judy?
Fiddleheads. And you see that looks like the head of a fiddle, of a violin, but I like fiddleheads.
And then they just unfurl and create, now these are not true leaves, these are called fronds. Judy, can you point the fronds?
Yes,
now these fronds, it's called a Christmas fern. This is the most common fern that I have seen in the woods, and I do a lot of hiking. This is the most common one because they stay green until Christmas, and then when they start getting the fiddleheads and get new leaves, these brown. So you can cut them down if you want to. Right,
but this is a iconic fern in Georgia. But I have a collection of ferns too, and I always have those in there.
And there is one coming up. There is another presentation in a few weeks.
All about ferns. So I can't wait to see it. So these are a few places where if you want to go and view wildflowers, and there are many other places as well, but you can check this out in the around Atlanta or in North Georgia. And also, I should mention,
Where's my book? You want to show them that book?
Well, I wanted to mention on Facebook too, there's a Georgia Native Wildflower and Plants page. And if you go hiking and you take a picture of a wildflower you can't identify, if you send it to that Facebook page, the lady who's in charge of it is wonderful, and she will identify it. She's identified things for me that, in fact, I saw two things on my wildflower walk last weekend that I'd never seen before, and she identified them for me.
Okay, well, Judy, would you mind handing me that book? I got a lot of my source material from this book. And now do I hold that up?
Yeah, I think
you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is that good?
I think so.
Good. That's good. Probably better.
Yeah.
Okay. This has the title Favorite Wildflower Walks in Georgia. And it gives you a very extensive, I just wrote down, a few of those. I do want to point out Atlanta. If you go to Atlanta History Center, to the Quarry Gardens, there's wildflowers there. We talked about Autry Mill having the pink lady slippers. And in Decatur, there's a wonderful wildflower location there. It's a woodland area and they have lots of wildflowers. It's called the Decatur Wildflower Garden. And then, of course, the very first one we listed was the Shirley Miller Wildflower Trail that we've been talking about. And one that's very close to that is this Cedar Glades Walk.
Right, at Chickamauga. That's at the battlefield at Chickamauga. And let's see if you can see this. This is the book that Jay Clark, who led our first field trip to Pigeon Mountain and to the Pocket, wrote about the wildflowers. And actually, he has a website. So if you go to that, you can see about him. And he also posts pictures of the different flowers that are blooming at different times. And so this includes the wildflowers for the whole year, not just the spring wildflowers, but it's a great book. It's
Yeah, you
called
can
The
see Judy
Wildflowers.
likes this book. Look at all of her little post-it notes.
And also, we also like this book. This is called The Wildflowers of Georgia. It's published by the UGA, University of Georgia Press, and it is written by Linda Chafin. And the pictures are done by the same people that wrote your Wildflower
Yes,
Walk.
this is by the Norse. I guess they're married, you and Carole Norse.
Yes.
So this is a book that I would highly, highly recommend. It's got, not only does it have suggestions of where to hike, but also flowers.
Right.
And coming up, we could
well,
probably show them the next one where they can get a screenshot if they want to.
Right. And Jay's book too is so interesting because it's done by color.
Oh,
So-
yeah, all the
so-
white flowers.
which is wonderful because you don't know the name of it, so how can you look it up?
And they're the books, and you can
There.
see there are other suggestions there. And
Right.
if you want to do a screenshot or you're going to receive this, you can get this at the end
Right.
of the presentation.
Right.
And here are some websites. My favorite website, well, of course, we're Master Gardeners with UGA, so there's a UGA website you can get information from. But this gardenia.net, not only do they give you garden tips and design tips. And so if you have a spot and you don't know how to, what flowers to put in that space, and you want to look at pretty pictures and get ideas for combinations and design, there, go to that particular one. And then some of these others, you can just, that's where we got some of the flowers and ideas that we have shared with you today.
And then these are just a few, well, actually only 3 places in Georgia where you can buy native plants, native wildflowers and other native plant shrubs too. But there are many on the internet that not necessarily in Georgia where you can go and purchase wildflowers and they're, sustainably grown. They're not harvested from the nature. They're actually growing them.
Yeah. From seed. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Lee, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do have a few, Carole and Judy. Let's see. The first question, are there any wildflowers that we can grow at home that are edible?
the violas and pansies.
Oh, sure. You could certainly
Mhm.
grow those. I mean, they're all over my yard. You can come dig some.
And then there was one other one that you told me that
Well,
was
there are
edible.
really a lot of them that are
Yeah.
edible. What was it?
Yeah, 'cause
oh,
I
I
was-
know this, but I don't know that it would be so difficult to grow a huge amount of them. But spring beauty, the spring beauty that we talked about, it grows from a little corn that's sort of like a potato, and it was used as food at one time.
Yeah, the only thing is we told you don't pick
right,
flowers. So,
right.
so we don't really suggest you go out in the wild and pick any of these or remove them from the wild.
Right. And
They're there. We are enjoying them, and the next person needs to enjoy them too.
And I have heard of people eating them first when Solomon seal first begins to grow up, that they use it like asparagus. But and so, you might want to try that. You can, if you've got Solomon seal growing that you've planted in your garden, I guess you could try that.
All right. Any more, Lee?
Yes, a couple more. I'm going to leave my camera off because it keeps turning off. But can you identify any wildflowers that may be deer resistant? Are they deer resistant? Is that an issue if you have them in your like Judy?
Well, they won't. I don't think they'll eat bloodroot for sure, because they wouldn't like the way it tasted. Now they don't eat the deer. Deer do come into my wildflower garden because I've seen them eat the shrubbery that I have there. They don't eat ferns at all, but I think that as we said, that they can destroy Trillium if they, if you have that, because it takes it so long to bloom. And if they eat the blooms, then it's terrible. But I know they won't eat bloodroot. That would be one.
And I don't think they eat Solomon seal either, because I've had that, and I have.
Yeah, they don't.
They
don't
like
bother.
to chomp on pretty much anything in my yard, and I've never had any problem.
Yeah,
with
they
that.
don't bother my Solomon seal either.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
What?
other
Well, if
things.
you went to one of
Oh,
those,
well, they don't eat the wild ginger for sure, and wild ginger can be used as a ground cover almost.
and the other one is that foam flower, Tiarella.
Mhm.
I don't think they eat Tiarella, do they?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Truthfully, I don't
Yep.
know.
So that's the best I can do. But
Right.
you might want to Google that, because you can get pretty much anything from Google. But give us some more questions.
Can you tell us again the title of Jay's book?
Yes, it's called Wildflowers of Pigeon Mountain. And if you go to Wildflowers of Pigeon Mountain on the internet, I think you'll go to his website. You'll see his website.
Thank you.
But I think you can order this on Amazon.
Thanks a lot. Here's an interesting one. Have you tried transplanting a Christmas fern into a container? I'd like to try it for my shady porch, but I don't want to unless I know there's a good chance of survival.
Oh, yeah. They transplant very well, because I have a hillside that I've removed them from because it's so sunny over there, and I've moved them, and they seem to transplant well.
I know they transplant well into the garden. I'm not so sure I'm not so sure that it would be an appropriate fern to put in a pot though, because it's kind of floppy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not one of the really attractive ones for a pot.
Right.
It's attractive out in the wild, but
right.
yeah.
I don't think I would
you're
use
right.
one in a
Yeah.
pot. I might use something different.
Mhm.
You could use a maidenhair fern in a pot, and there are native maidenhair ferns that you can purchase, that are sold in the nurseries.
The autumn fern is the one that you find most frequently for
Right.
sale.
And it's a
they are-
non-native.
yeah,
Thank
but
you.
it survives very well.
Right.
in
The
this area.
maidenhair fern, though, you have to be careful to make sure it stays moist, or it will die back. It does come back after you water it, once you cut all the fronds off, but it
Yeah.
will die back.
Okay.
So then just listen to the next presentation on, a couple weeks from now on ferns.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about Turk's cap lily? Are you familiar with that one? Turk's.
I am familiar with it. I do not have a Turk's cap lily. I purchased one once and it lived for a short while for me, and then it disappeared. But they're lovely. I see them growing along, like driving up to Highlands in the summer. I see them on the side of the road growing. So
Okay.
they're lovely.
Mhm.
And the very last question, I think you may have answered this. Are there any wildflowers that like sun 24/7?
Well, the fall wildflowers do. I don't know about the spring
ones, no.
ephemerals, maybe not, but
Mm-mm.
certainly in the fall, goldenrod, ironweed,
Jack pie weed and
butterfly weed,
bushes. Yeah.
milkweed will grow in the sun. So the summer and fall wildflowers all like sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
And they are all in Jay's book, because he doesn't just deal with the spring wildflowers as we were doing, but he deals with flowers all year long.
And plant milkweed, because that's how we're going to keep the monarchs, they're declining in numbers. And so if you can plant some milkweed, please plant it, but it's not going to bloom until what month? June, July or something. It's
Probably
pretty
about
late.
June or July. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Carole and Judy, that was great. we're getting a lot of questions about the references, but I just wanted to say in the follow-up email, there'll be a link to the video. Plus, it's being streamed on Facebook, so people can go there and look for the reference slide. But
Good.
thank you so much.
Oh,
And
well, thank you. We enjoyed it.
I'm going to sign off, and you can.
And I really hope that people will go visit the pocket or visit somewhere where they'll see wildflowers.
Okay, we want to thank our promotional partners that really helped us, you know, spread the word, and many of you heard about us through these links, and we look how many of these links we have. We have to thank Lee for that. She's been working on that diligently, and let's move on to the next thing.
Right,
Here are
to our
media
media
partners. We have to thank them too, that spread the word. We've even had some articles put into some of the magazines and newspapers. So thank you very much for
Yes, we
helping
really
us spread the
appreciate
word.
it. They've been very nice to the North Fulton Master Gardeners.
And here's our series today. It was the series that you just observed. And then
Next week, we're going to learn about figs, and I'm going to listen to that. We'll go watch that one.
and how many figs does Ian have in his
He-
yard? I mean,
I
this
think he
guy
has-
knows about
He has
figs.
100 different types of figs. I had no idea there were 100 different types of figs.
Well, I want to know what he does with all of them.
I know.
So if you want to know anything about figs, we have somebody who is an expert, like a 5-star expert.
Right. And then the one on insects, that's being done by our by Gabrielle, who's our extension. She's the extension agent, and she's an entomologist.
And there's the
So-
ferns we mentioned, and then
Mhm.
there's perennials for water gardens.
So
Yep, we're going to move on here. And this is just the way that you can connect with us through all the basic social medias. So
right, this is all for the North Fulton Master Gardeners. And if you'd like to donate to the North Fulton Master Gardeners, there are many ways to do that, through PayPal or check or anything.
And then
And we appreciate it, because our goal is to provide education for the public. And so we do go into schools quite a bit, and
we give scholarships, and
right, we do a lot of
we take care of historic gardens throughout Roswell and Sandy Springs and other places, and we need money in order to do that. So
right.
if you can help us out, and you can buy through Give and Garden up through April the 4th. You can go to their website, and 50% of what you purchase goes back to us.
Right.
100% guaranteed.
That looks like a Trillium.
yeah.
So maybe you can actually buy a Trillium. And also coming up in April, the last Saturday in April, April 29th, every year except during COVID, we put on a garden fair. And part of that, we sell plants from our gardens.
And we're going to have vendors there.
There.
So, and we're going to have flea teak. I'm in charge of flea teak. So we're going to have people's, they're going to do their little spring house cleaning, and we're going to be
Right.
recipients of those, and maybe you will find your treasure.
And it's a great event. It's at a new location at Wills Park this year. So that should be good, because there'll be lots of parking. And if you come, you might want to bring, if you've got a collapsible wagon, that's a good thing to bring. And please don't forget, you will be given a survey at the end. It'll be sent to you, and please fill it out so you can tell us how we did or what you would like to see in the future. And we would really appreciate it.
And thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so
we
very,
enjoyed
very
being-
much.
Yes, we enjoyed being with you, and we really hope we've encouraged you to go out and look at the wildflowers.
Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Right.
So long. Bye-bye.
Thank you.